Hello, Mina here. It's the start of a beautiful day and the sun is down. No, it's not. Just kidding. Just kidding. So anyways, I decided to do a book review today. So today I would like to look at a book called The False Prince. In this book by Jennifer A. Nielsen, it's actually quite interesting that and I really do. His name is Sage, but I needed to find his name in the book because I read this such a long time ago, and I need to reread it. But it's a really awesome book. It's basically, let me just read the back of it because I have a copy of it in my hands. 4 boys, one treacherous plan, an entire kingdom to fool. In a faraway land, civil war is brewing. To identify his kingdom's divided people, a nobleman named Connor devises a cunning plan to place an impersonator of the king's long lost son on the throne. 4 orphans are forced to compete for the role, including a defiant and clever boy named Sage. Sage knows Connor's motives are more than questionable, yet his life bounces on the sword's point. Literally. He must be chosen to play the prince, or he will certainly be killed. As Sage moves from a rundown orphanage to Connor's sumptuous palace, layer upon layer of duplicity and deceit unfold, until finally a truth is revealed that may very well prove more dangerous than all the lies taken together. Jennifer A. Nielsen has woven a heart-racing tale taut with danger and bold adventure that will have the readers cling to the edge of their seats. So that is that's what the back says. And on the front, it has a picture of a broken crown that says, "Choose to lie or choose to die," which I think is pretty interesting because that's basically like, if they defy Connor, he'll kill them without a second thought. I will warn you though, there is fighting, there is killing, but it's not as thick as some of the books that I read, like Shipbreaker or The Drowned Cities, which that has to be one of the most type of books that I've ever read. But but it's not modern time. It's actually like in a pre-dystopian, but at the same time it's kind of pre-dystopian, but at the same time it's not, because it's its own story and it has all different countries, all different stuff like that. And so it's just a really awesome book. And then to get you interested even more, I'm going to read the first chapter out loud. Or at least part of the first chapter because, it's... Let me see how many pages it is. Give me a moment. So it's 8 pages, which I can do that. So let's do that. And if you don't want to listen to me read, you may just want to go check out the book and not listen to the rest of this video, because that is about all that I will be doing for the rest of the time. So yeah, enjoy. 1. If I had to do it all over again, I would not have chosen this life. Then again, I'm not sure I ever had a choice. Those were my thoughts as I raced away from the market with stolen roast tucked under my arm. I'd never attempted roast thievery before, and I was already regretting it. It happens to be very difficult to hold a chunk of raw meat while running. More slippery than I anticipated. If the butcher didn't catch up with me with his cleaver first and literally cut off my future plans, I vowed to remember to get the meat wrapped next time, then steal it. He was only a few paces behind now, chasing me at a better speed than I'd have expected for a man of his girth. He yelled very loudly in his native language, one that I didn't recognize. He was originally from one of the far western countries, undoubtedly a country where killing a meat thief was allowed. It was this sort of thought that encouraged me to run faster. I rounded a corner just as the cleaver suddenly cut into a wood post behind me. Even though he was aiming for me, I couldn't help but admire his throwing accuracy. If I hadn't turned when I did, the cleaver would have found its target. But I was only a block from Miss Turbidy's orphanage for disadvantaged boys. I knew how to disappear there, and I might have made it, if not for the bald man sitting outside the tavern who stretched out his foot in time to trip me. Luckily, I managed to keep hold of the roast, although it did no flavors to my right shoulder as I fell onto the dirt road. The butcher leaned over me and laughed. "'Bout time you get what's coming, you filthy beggar." Sorry, and yeah, let's just forget that. I can't read voices. I'll try to do that. I'll do my best to make voices for them, but they're gonna end up being really weird and bad. So don't blame me, okay? As a point of fact, I hadn't begged for anything. It was beneath me. His laughter was quickly followed up by with a kick to my back, and that chased my breath away. I curled up into a ball, prepared for a beating I wasn't sure I'd live to regret. The butcher landed a second kick and had reared back for a third when another man shouted, "Stop!" The butcher turned. "You stay out of this. He stole a roast. An entire roast. Really? And what is the cost? 30 garlands." My well-trained ears heard the sound of coins in the bag. Then the man said, "I'll pay you 50 garlands if you turn that boy over to me now." 50? 1 moment. The butcher gave me a final kick in the side, then leaned low towards me. "If you ever come to my shop again, I'll cut you up and sell you as meat in the market. Got it?" The message was straightforward. I nodded. The man paid the I can't say that word. Butcher, who stomped away. I wanted to look up at whoever had saved me further beating, but I was hunched in the only position that didn't send me gasping in pain, and I was in no hurry to change that. The pity I felt for myself wasn't shared by the man with the coins. He grabbed my shirt and yanked me to my feet. Once our eyes locked and he lifted me. His were dark brown and more tightly focused than I had ever seen before. He smiled slightly as he studied me, his thin mouth barely visible behind a neat trim brown beard. He looked to be somewhere in his 40s and dressed in the fine clothes of the upper class. But based on the way he lifted me, he was much stronger than I expected of no man. "I'll have a word with you, boy," he said. "You'll walk with me to the orphanage, or I'll have you carried there." The entire right side of my body throbbed, but the left side was okay, so I favored it as I started to walk. "Stand up straight," the man ordered. I ignored him. He was probably some rich country gentleman who wanted to purchase an indentured servant for his lands. Although I was eager to leave behind the tough streets of Cartier, servitude wasn't in my future plans, which meant I could walk as crookedly as I wanted. Besides, my right leg really hurt. Miss Tubidy's orphanage for disadvantaged boys was the only place for orphan boys in the northern end of Carthia. 19 of us lived there, ranging from 3 to 15. I was almost 15, and any day now Miss Tubidy would send me away, but I didn't want to leave yet, and certainly not as the stranger's servant boy. Miss Turbity was waiting in her office when I walked in, the man close behind me. She was too fat and incredibly to credibly claim she starved along with the rest of us, but strong enough to beat anyone who complained about that fact. In recent months, she and I had settled into a routine of barely tolerating each other. Miss Tubbity must have seen what happened outside because she shook her head and said, "A whole roast? What were you thinking?" "That we had a lot of hungry boys," I said. "You can't feed us bean and bread every day and not have a revolt." "You'll give me that roast then," she said, holding out her plump hands. "Business first." I clutched the roast more tightly to myself and nodded at the man. "Who is he?" The man stepped forward. "My name is Bevan Connor. Tell me yours." I stared at him without answering, which earned me a whack on the back of my head from Miss Tubbity's broom. "His name is Sage," she told Connor, "and as I told you before, you're better off with a rabid badger than this one." Connor raised an eyebrow and stared at me as if that amused him, which was annoying because I had no interest in providing him with any entertainment. So I tossed my hair out of my eyes and said, "She's right. Can I go now?" Connor frowned and shook his head. The moment of amusement had passed. "What can you do, boy?" "If you bothered to ask my name, you might as well use it," he continued as if he hadn't heard me, also annoying. "What is your training?" "He doesn't have any," Miss Tuberly says. "None a gentleman like yourself would need anyhow." "What did your father do?" Connor asked me. He was best as a musician, but still a terrible one," I said. "If he had made a single coin from playing, my father never saw it." "He was probably a drunk," Miss Tuberty rapped my ear with her knuckles. "So this one's made his way through theft and lies." "What sort of lies?" I wasn't sure if the question was directed at me or Miss Tuberty, but he was looking at Miss Tuberty, so I let her speak. She took Connor by the arm and pulled him into a corner, which was an entirely useless gesture, because not only was I standing right there and perfectly able to hear every word, but the story was also about me, so it was hardly a secret. Connor obliged her, though I noticed he faced himself towards me as she spoke. "First time the boy came in here, he had a shiny silver coin in his hand, said he was a runaway, the son of a dead duke from somewhere in Albania, only he didn't want to be a duke. So I took him in and gave him preferential care and a place to hide. He paid me a coin a week, kept it up for 2 weeks, all the time laughing it up on some extra servants at dinner and with extra blankets on this bed." Connor glanced at me. I rolled my eyes. He'd be less impressed when she finished the story. "Then one night he took with a fever, got all delirious late in the night, hitting everyone and yelling and such. I was there when he confesses all. He's no son of anyone important. The coins belonged to a duke all right, but he'd stolen them to trick me into caring for him. I dumped his body into the cellar to get better or not. I didn't care. Next time I checked on him, he'd gotten over the fever on his own and was a good deal more humble." Connor looked at me again. "He doesn't look so humble now." "I got over that too," I said. "So, why'd you let him stay?" Connor asked Miss Tumberty. Miss Tumberty hesitated. She didn't want to tell him that it was because I picked up goodies for him now and then, ribbon for her hat or chocolate from the cake shop. Because of that, Miss Tuberty didn't hate me nearly as much as she pretended to. Or maybe she did. I stole from her, too. Connor walked back to me. "A thief and a liar, eh? Can you manage a sword?" "Sure, if my opponent doesn't have one." He grinned. "Do you farm?" "No." I took it as an insult. "Hunt?" "No." "Can you read?" I stared up at him through the parts of my hair. "What are you wanting me for, Connor?" "You'll address me as Sir or Master Connor." What are you wanting me for, Sir or Master Connor?" "That's a conversation for another time. Gather your things. I'll wait for you here." I shook my head. Sorry, but when I leave the comfort of Miss Tuberty's fine establishment, I go on my own. You're going with him, Miss Tuberty said. You've been bought and paid for by Master Connor, and I can't wait to get rid of you. You'll earn your freedom by doing whatever I ask of you, and doing it well, Connor said, or serve me poorly and serve me for life. I wouldn't serve anyone for an hour until freedom, I said. Connor took a step forward towards me, hand out. I threw the roast I'd been holding at him, and he flinched to avoid it. Using that momentum, I pushed past Miss Tuberty and darted out into the streets. It would have been helpful to know that he'd left a couple of vigils at the door. One grabbed my arms while the other clubbed me over the head from behind. I barely had time to curse their mothers' graves before I crumpled to the ground. End of chapter 1. So tell me what you thought in the comments below. Just tell me. And if you would like for me to continue the story, like if you want me to read out loud, which I'm pretty sure that was just really horrible right now. But anyways, thank you for stopping by, and I hope you have a wonderful day.